morning, it is time to get up with sensational Steph, single-handedly saving the season. His latest masterpiece is right off the top. Then, trade day now behind us. It's decision time for all the NFL teams who need quarterbacks once and for all. Who are they going to take? Plus, they need to put the D back in Big D. But there is one thing that could change everything for the Cowboys. We'll tell you what that is as we get up with you starting right now on a Tuesday. I'm Greeny in New York. Delighted you've chosen to get up with us, and we have put together a crew to talk football with you today and more. We're 9 days away from the NFL draft, and look who is here. Field Yates, who I believe is running for mayor of Vail, Colorado. Mike Tannenbaum, who is going to trade up for a quarterback by the end of today's program. And Dan Orlovsky is going to hit a few drives straight down the middle of the fairway. They're on their way, but we begin with the performance of the night. Oh, Steph Curry has been on fire, and it would continue last night in Philly, being guarded by his brother, closing seconds of the first, knocking down a three. That's a sign of things to come. Steph had 29 through three. And then in the fourth quarter, he just took over. Watch Steph Curry around the screen. That's going to be a theme. That's his 6th-3. That would tie the game at 86. Warriors down 2 now. Curry again using the screen. That's his 7th-3 of the night. Warriors up by 1. Later, the lead is 1. It's Steph again. It's the same play around the screen. His brother can't get there. That's 8 threes. Warriors pulling away. 2 minutes left. Warriors by 6. You're not going to believe it. It's Steph again. That's his 9th. Warriors up by 9. And then just for a good measure, how about breaking it into double digits? Just over a minute ago, the lead is 6. That's his 10th 3 of the night. 49 points for Steph Curry. His 11th straight game with at least 30. You can't spell Steph without MVP.
This streak, I'm obviously aware, but it's you don't put too much pressure on yourself. You just play basketball. I've just settled into just having fun, kind of letting the game come to you, and I'm having a blast out there just playing basketball, and it's obviously working.
You guys ask me after every game what I think of Steph and his performance, and it's whatever I said last game, just use that. It's just utter amazement at this guy's skill level, heart, mind, focus. It's just amazing to watch.
Well, it's a 2-time MVP, but he's never played better than he's playing right now. Since last Monday, Steph has 4 games with 10 threes. That stretch alone would give him the 3rd most such games all time. That's since last Monday. He's also the first player ever to average 40 points, 50% from the floor, 40% on threes, and 90% from the line over an 11-game stretch. And after the explosion last night, he has overtaken Bradley Beal for the scoring title this season. He's now averaging 31.4 points a game. He has also moved up his odds in the MVP running. This was last night during the game. Caesars Sportsbook by William Hill moved his odds from 50-1 to 20-1 as a result of last night's game alone. And so here is Tim Legler and Legs. Now, we were talking before the show came on about just what this stretch has meant for the sport, for the league at a time when they so desperately need it. What do you think about the idea that Steph has entered the MVP conversation?
Oh, yeah, he should have been in it all along, but I think what he's doing right now, obviously, has thrust him into the conversation because they're also winning games. And in the NBA, it's a little bit different. You know, it's not like baseball where you can win an MVP in a last-place team. I believe A-Rod did that. It doesn't work that way in the NBA, typically. You've got to have a team that's winning, a team that's a solid playoff team, and they're starting to win again, and he's doing it at the right time. All this momentum as we head down the stretch. This is a guy now that at 33 years old is giving us something that we never thought we'd see, which is him at his very best. Imagine capturing for a moment in time an all-time great when he's at his absolute best. It's hard to find that sometimes and remember what that is for all-time greats. We're seeing it right before our eyes. So absolutely, he belongs in the conversation. And more importantly for me, Greeny, what you just said, he may have salvaged the NBA regular season because it has been a very difficult stretch with all of these guys missing games, marquee matchups that don't really come to fruition. He has now created so much interest with what he is doing and so much electricity that he is really single-handedly saving the regular season for the NBA and giving us a great prelude for what the playoffs could look like.
I agree completely. He plays with such a joy that it is contagious and delightful to watch. Again, he has 6 games with at least 10 threes this season. No other player has more than 5 in their career. So what Steph is doing is ridiculous. But you brought up initially the idea of this team not being in the play. Right now, they're not even assured of being in the playoffs. They would be in that play-in situation. What do they look like to you right now as far as a team that could do some damage if they get in the playoffs?
Well, look, they're still obviously a team that's shorthanded, and that's going to be tough. Their rotation isn't very deep. But when you have a guy this high that does this kind of destruction to what you want to do defensively and totally redefines how far out you have to extend your defense and the number of bases you need to cover and how easy that makes the game for other people. When you have a guy like this at his absolute best, Greeny, would you want to play him in a one-game situation in a play-in? I certainly wouldn't. And then even if they're able to escape that, you look at a team like Phoenix, you look at a team like Utah, the 2 teams at the top of the Western Conference. You want to play Steph Curry in a best-of-7 when he's coming in, playing his absolute best basketball of his entire life? It's a dangerous proposition. What this guy is doing right now to defenses, it's almost impossible to ask that much of your bigs to be that far out on the floor that often to contain this guy. And that's what he is doing right now. And he's certainly making those early games, the play-in games certainly, and then maybe even a best-of-7 with a team like Utah or Phoenix in the first round. Much more interesting than we ever thought it would have been.
No question. Legs, outstanding to see you. Thank you. Stay close by. We'll do more with you a little later as Steph is knocking down all the trays. And speaking of trays, let's get to Trey Lance. He had his second pro day yesterday, and among those in attendance, and this is important, were the 49ers' John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. They have the number 3 pick in the draft. I want you to hear something that Dominique Foxworth said yesterday on our show, talking with some skepticism as it relates to the hype surrounding Trey Lance.
As impressive as Trey Lance's highlights are something about those highlights give me some pause because I look at the end zone and it says Penguins. Like he's playing against Youngstown State. Like let's relax. Let's calm it down a little bit. He's balling against Penguins. It's hard for me to get too excited about that tape.
Well, that's what he said. Meanwhile, Dan Orlovsky on Twitter yesterday, in talking about Lance, tweeted, "You don't draft on production, you draft on projection." So a couple of different ways to look at this very intriguing prospect. Let's look at him a little more closely, Field and Mike T. And Dan, I'll start with you. It's usually Ryan Clark I ask to do this, but explain that tweet.
Well, Greeny, quarterback production is a completely dependent result, especially in college football.